So the next kind of tax that we're going to talk about is the regressive tax. So the regressive tax is the opposite of the progressive tax. A regressive tax is one that taxes the poor harder than the rich. You might say, well, why would we do that? Well, okay, so it's not quite that way. The way this is represented is the argument goes like this, is that the tax is a higher percentage of income for the poor. So it's not that the poor are being taxed harder than the rich in mathematical terms, but the argument goes like this, that if a poor person has to pay like 6.25%, that's the Social Security tax, of $20,000, that's a higher percentage of 20,000, that tax, than the 6.25% of the 300,000. The idea is that if a poor person loses this 6.25 of the 20,000, they'll hardly have any money for rent or food, and so you can't tax them. That's why it's harder. It's hurting the poor more than the rich, because the rich person losing 6.25%, they'll still be able to have rent and food, and so they're fine. So they can absorb the tax easier than the poor person can absorb the tax. Now, of course, if you get out your calculator, you're going to find that, this percentage is the same for both people, and the rich person is, of course, paying, gosh, what is that, like 5 times? No. Anyway, it's a lot more than that. So the rich person is paying many times more money than the poorer person. Okay? So take this argument that this is a regressive tax with a grain of salt. All right? The counter argument would be that they get the same benefit in Social Security. So when the poor person retires and the rich person retires, they both get Social Security, and they get it at the same amount. So who paid in more into the system? The rich person did, and the system gives them an equal amount. So is this really taxing the poor harder than the rich? I have a tough time making that argument, because mathematically the rich person is paying way more than the poor person for the same thing. So the way this was set up for Social Security, currently you pay 6.25%. That's where Congress has set it, but only on the first 137,000 that you earn, because if you wanted to, you could just keep taxing the rich all the way out there. But then, of course, are they going to get the same benefit as the poor person? The answer is yes. So it would increasingly take money for Social Security. That's true. It would keep Social Security filled with lots of money, but it would only be from, just like our progressive tax, certain very rich people that were funding all the other people's benefits. Okay? So if you only make $10,000 per year, yes, you're taxed at 6.25%, but when you retire, you're getting the full benefit of Social Security. Okay? So it's not that there's some huge trust fund for the rich people out there in Social Security. The benefits are capped, and so that's why they cut it off right here. Okay? So regressive tax is not in a sense that it is mathematically taxing the poor harder than the rich. You have to sort of twist that argument to say it is the poor that are absorbing a cost that's harder for them to absorb, and therefore the rich people can absorb it easier, so it must be easier on them and harder on the poor. Did you follow that? Okay. Same kind of argument can then be used for things like property taxes, because everyone needs a house. So if you're going to assign property taxes, well, that's going to hurt the poor more than the rich. And because of that, trying to absorb, those property taxes. Oregon has especially high property taxes. We are some of the highest property taxes in the country. So for a state that really talks about equality and not hurting the poor, this is a little strange, all right? So property taxes are huge in the state of Oregon. Sales taxes. Sales taxes are regressive if you put them on basic food items. So poorer people will buy basic food items and, maybe a few things, but that's it. The rich people will buy yachts and caviar and things like that. So again, if you put a tax on basic food, the rich person's percentage of basic food, milk, cheese, bread, eggs, butter, is going to be a smaller percentage of their total income, and they're able to absorb the sales tax easier than the poor person who has very little to work with. Okay? So that's that argument there. It's about how it affects their percentage of income based on how they can absorb the sales tax cost. That argument has been made, and so a lot of states don't have sales tax on basic food items. So the state of Idaho, I think, has like a 5 or 6% sales tax, but certain items are exempt. So milk, bread, eggs, cheese, butter, things that you're going to buy as staples in almost any household in America, that's thought to be of food quality that poor people can get and not have to pay a sales tax. So a lot of things in Idaho have sales tax, but there's a few basic foods that are exempted from it for that reason. Okay? So this is a regressive tax.